Good morning, everyone. Okay, so that was pretty weak, quite honestly, and to be brutally honest with you. So, good morning. Good morning. Fantastic. Ken, thank you for the invitation to be here again, and I always look forward to the Mid-Market Convention. I want to thank you again for being in Philadelphia, and certainly being here at the University of Pennsylvania. Our Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, Alan Greenberger, will be speaking on a panel later today, and he'll talk to you even more about some of the exciting things going on in Philadelphia. First and foremost, welcome to our great city, and again to the University of Pennsylvania, one of the finest universities in the world. If this is your first time here, either at the university or in Philadelphia, you're certainly in for a treat, but always like coming back to this convention and also back on campus. I'm a graduate of Penn and of the Wharton School. Always good to be back on campus and see all the things that I missed when I was not going to school in those days. The school has really changed a great deal, and always looking forward to something new. We're honored to host you again. You are, in fact, a quite impressive gathering of CEOs in the mid-market, and this event has certainly become known in many circles as the Davos for the mid-market. You couldn't be in the city at a more exciting and dynamic time. Philly is, in fact, a city on the rise. Population is growing. We've had 8 straight years of population growth, and certainly the fastest or largest percentage increase of millennial population of any major city in the United States of America. New companies are growing or moving to Philadelphia and expanding. Our international profile as one of the most vibrant and dynamic cities in the United States of America has never been higher, and I can talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing in that regard. Things are so hot, not necessarily the weather, but so exciting in Philadelphia that someone figured they had to come and check it out for themselves. That was last month with the visit by Pope Francis. He wanted to see what was going on in Philadelphia. Brought about 1 million of his friends with him. I became mayor nearly 8 years ago, January of 2008. I set out with some very specific goals for our organization, our company. I'll talk about the city as a company in a variety of ways, but I set some very specific goals for the city of Philadelphia. Running the city, this is a large organization, a large service organization, $7.3 billion corporation, 28,000 employees, 1.5 million stakeholders, also known as our customers. We are running a business here in the city of Philadelphia. These shareholders expect a return on the investment that they make with the tax dollars that they provide to us to help run our business. My job is to provide service and leadership, help grow our market share by attracting new businesses and residents, and of course holding on to the good customers that we've had for a long period of time. People and businesses, of course, much like your experience, they have choices, and they are more mobile than they've ever been. And so if I'm not delivering for our customers, they will find someone else to provide the services that they need for themselves or their families. We've made a number of changes to make Philadelphia that much more attractive and certainly business-friendly. We've cut taxes on a regular basis, even exempting new businesses, new small businesses from taxes for the first 2 years of their operation, as well as providing job creation tax credits for these growing companies in our city. We've streamlined our business processes and procedures, eliminated a wide variety of fees that were in many instances just a nuisance to figure out why you were paying them in the first place. We made Philadelphia easier in which to develop, leading to a construction boom that has resulted in $11.5 billion of economic activity just since January of 2014. We revised our zoning code for the first time in 50 years. We also produced a new citywide development plan, also for the first time in 50 years. But I think most important, possibly the most important, and you'll recognize this, of course, as the business people that you are, is that professionalism and customer service are the driving ethics and ethos of our city government. We're a large service organization, as I mentioned. We have a variety of lines of business, certainly a public safety line and a customer service line, a recreation line, business development, and many, many others in our city government. We try to build long-term relationships with the businesses here in our city. And as business-focused as we are, and we know how to conduct transactions, we try not to just be transactional. We're about building relationships. Relationships last the longest, and they're also the way that people make decisions in a variety of ways, even when challenged or even when someone is trying to attract them to go somewhere else. If you've established that long-term relationship and continue to deliver at least what you committed to, folks will stick with you over the long haul. Last month, for example, Axalta Coating Systems broke ground on their new Global Innovation Center at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of people who wanted Axalta to be in their locale. They did, in fact, look at a variety of locations, not only here in Philadelphia, but in the region and across the country. They chose Philadelphia because of the relationship we had already developed with them, and even though some other places might be a little less costly or even provide more business incentive, the long-term relationship of being in the city of Philadelphia, based on what had already happened over the past few years, access to talent, and the relationship that we developed, really did lead to a significant part of their decision-making. We built that relationship with them, and they're investing in the city. And I could tell that story time and time and time again for so many businesses in the city of Philadelphia. I know that this year's conference theme is Where Innovation Meets Scale. Innovation is, in fact, the driving force behind Philadelphia's economy. It's been that way pretty much from the start. Of course, we're at one of the great innovations of a former Philadelphian, Ben Franklin, just being here on the University of Pennsylvania's campus. And innovation has led the way in our city's history for a long, long period of time. We educate some of the brightest minds in the country and the world who go on to develop world-changing technologies and companies. And that's not only here at the University of Pennsylvania, but it could be at any one of our 101 colleges and universities in the tri-state area, where we educate about 400,000 young people on a regular basis. Some of the most cutting-edge technologies, certainly in the healthcare field, which is a specialty for us, Penn Medicine, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Jefferson University Hospital, right here in our great city, and a number of others. We have a thriving startup scene with companies like RJ Metrics, Curalate, ArcWeb, and Sear Innovative, which are experiencing huge growth and raising serious venture capital. And we're supporting their efforts through initiatives like the city's Startup PHL program, our own investment opportunity in startup businesses here in Philadelphia. And so, as fascinating, as well put together as this conference is, and I know Ken would not want you to leave for one moment, but if you can possibly sneak out while he's not watching, try to explore the rest of Philadelphia. And whether it's here in University City, and there's certainly a lot to do here, or pop across the river, across the Schuylkill, and come into Center City, Philadelphia, you will find some of the most exciting restaurants and shopping, architecture, and history as you will anywhere in the United States of America. As my customers, please let me know if there is anything that we can do to make your stay that much more enjoyable. And to those of you without a presence in the city of Philadelphia, we hope that you'll see our great city for what it is and look at opportunities to expand in this growing and thriving metropolis. You'll find no better quality of life, no more talented workforce, and no more welcoming city government anywhere in the United States of America than right here in Philadelphia. Once again, welcome to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, our place known as Philadelphia. Be pleased to try to answer any questions that you might have. We're supposed to do a Q&A, right? Yep, okay. Thanks a lot. Are there any questions? Did you guys get worn out last night? Did something happen? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Question. Are there any special initiatives that the city of Philadelphia has to foster the growth of or attract manufacturing companies?
Glad you asked the question. January of last year, we released Just got a warning, it's going to be cold outside. January of last year, extremely cold apparently. January of last year, I created the Mayor's Manufacturing Task Force, specifically focused on manufacturing here in Philadelphia. This city, of course, known formerly as the workshop to the world. We built and made everything, or it seems like just about everything. But, you know, manufacturing in great old Northeast cities has had its challenges. Manufacturing is still going on in Philadelphia, but in many instances it's also a different kind of manufacturing than maybe our parents or grandparents knew in the factory with soot and dirt and all kinds of other stuff going on. Now it's highly mechanized, technologically significant, and a different kind of education needed in that regard. So we had 4 co-chairs. Alan Greenberger was one, Bill Hunt from Augusta Westland was another, a member of City Council, and a banker who also happened to head the Chamber of Commerce. They issued a report this year, and we're implementing many of the initiatives from that report. So manufacturing is back on the rise and on the horizon here in Philadelphia. One of the companies that we visited when Steve Case was here 2.5 weeks ago for the Rise of the Rest tour. Philly is a part of that. There's a company in the healthcare sector. They're about to take their product to market, getting through the FDA process. They are seriously, actively, aggressively looking for machinists. Somebody's got to build it and make it. They want to be here in Philadelphia, and we're helping that company find machinists here in the city. Also helping people to better understand the transfer of skill sets from maybe what you used to do in that factory and plant and moving into a different realm, but utilizing in many instances some of the same skill sets, but in a different application. There was a lady over here.
You've affected enormous change in Philadelphia.
I tried.
So you must have a way of thinking about how to trigger change and make people see things differently. Can you share that with the leaders in this room?
Sure. You know, I think it starts with setting aggressive, realistic, and practical goals. Again, I look at the city as a business enterprise or a business corporation. The overwhelming majority of folks in the government do not work directly for me. I didn't hire them all. Of course, we have union employees, civil service, et cetera, et cetera. But I do at least hire the leadership. And I've made it very clear what our priorities are for this government. Some coming from my history as a former member of Philadelphia City Council, much coming from the fact that this is my hometown. So I know this place pretty well. On the first day, I laid out some goals for the city that we had to significantly invest in education, both for young people in K-12, as well as increase our college degree attainment rate. We've done both, not where we want to be, but we've had progress in both areas, and I've been very focused and consistent in that regard. And the second was that we had to ensure public safety and drive down the crime rate here in the city of Philadelphia. And so on that day, at the first inauguration, I said that we needed a 30 to 50% reduction in homicides in the city of Philadelphia. As I stand here today, we've had a 37% reduction in homicides and violent crime in the city of Philadelphia. One, is because I hired the best police commissioner in the United States of America, and two, I backed him up at every step along the way. When I came into office, we had about 54% high school graduation rate. Today, that number is 65%. When I came into office, about 18% of Philadelphians over the age of 25 had a bachelor's degree. Today, that number is 25%. And so again, set aggressive goals, stayed focused, talked about these issues, and took action on them every day that I've been in office. And so change is not easy. This is a town that loves change as long as things can stay exactly the same. And so it's about the consistency and the focus, hiring really great people and letting them do their job. In the meantime, of course, we had the recession that really did get in the way of a lot of things that we wanted to do, but we've come out of it, I think, stronger and better and learned a great deal. One of the things I was going to mention to you this morning, which I've not talked about in the past, but is increasingly a thought of mine as I'm quite well aware of the calendar. I mean, the question really is, does your company have momentum? Or, according to the laws of physics, are you a body at rest that will stay at rest unless an external force acts upon it? I'd like to think at some point in my tenure as mayor, I was an external force that acted upon a body that, quite honestly, at the time wasn't doing a whole lot. And we've changed the trajectory and the momentum for the city of Philadelphia. The city has momentum today. There's no question about it. And as we transition to a new administration, I think the challenge is maintaining much of that momentum. It doesn't just keep itself going on its own. You have to apply some external force to it to keep that momentum going. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
You mentioned your success in attracting the millennials. Was that a specific strategy?
I'd say partially. The larger strategy was increasing the city's population. We had 60 years of population loss, pretty much since the 1950s. You know, again, and I'll walk you through, I'm going to come back to this momentum idea in a second. I thought that population growth was significant as a part of the development of the city of Philadelphia. So as a candidate, I said that we needed to increase the city's population by at least 75,000 over the next few years. We've increased the city's population by nearly 70,000 people since I've been in office. And so attracting new folks, holding on to college and university students. So about 9 years ago, we were holding on to about 28-29% of non-native college and university students. Today, that number is 49%. And so population growth, having more young people, getting more to stay, increasing the college degree attainment rate, part of which is through holding on to recent grads, all a part of a larger strategy of moving the city forward and generating a certain level of excitement. They bring knowledge, they bring information, they bring a little fun from time to time and help create a nightlife, which, Philly has the second largest downtown residential population of any city in the United States of America. Many of those young people are staying downtown. And so while we have a fantastic business sector in Center City, Philadelphia, where a ton of people have jobs, what we don't want is a place where everyone comes to work in Center City and then everyone leaves Center City to go, stay wherever they stay, whether in one of our neighborhoods or possibly in the suburbs. We have a built-in, active, lively downtown because thousands and thousands and thousands of people actually live there. So, yes, part of a larger strategy. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can you think of one and maybe two examples of mid-market companies in the Philly area who have demonstrated a best practice, whether or not it's in innovation or talent management, that you'd like to share with the group?
Always a challenge highlighting one company over the other. That always gets me in trouble. But I think a mid-market company. Let me talk about some of the companies that we've had a few companies who are pretty large in their space, but they're not in Philadelphia, and figured out, so they're nearby. They're in our suburbs. And we created something called a Gateway Office Program. So I made a decision early on, because of my previous relationships with folks in the suburbs, that we were not going to spend a lot of time trying to poach businesses, for instance, from the suburbs to move into Philadelphia. Ultimately, we try to get theirs, they try to get ours, a lot of bad feelings on both sides, and everybody's really kind of pissed off all the time. So our strategy was, if you want to or need to move to Philadelphia, love to have you, but we are not going to actively go out trying to steal business. What we did say is, you might want to have a presence in Philadelphia. I know you can't move the whole plant in operation. You've got 200 acres, you've got trees, grass, deer, whatever else you have out there. Fantastic. And, you own the place and you're going to be there for a long time. But you might want to hang a shingle or put a sign up here in the city. A lot of your employees already live in Philadelphia. They're already paying the wage tax here, and they're commuting, reverse commuting, of course, 45 minutes to an hour outside. We've had a number of those companies open offices with 10, 15, 25 some odd folks. Those offices are thriving. That's where their new employees are being interviewed because they don't want to drive an hour out to have interaction, or when they have to bring people in to interact with the company, they're either flying into Philly International, they're coming into 30th Street Station, they're having that meeting in Philadelphia, they're eating in one of our restaurants, they're staying in one of our hotels, then get back on the plane or the train and go home, and don't make that commute out there. They're still doing business. It's all the same company, but it's a wonderful opportunity to grow what is a big company outside of us and now grow what I would suggest is a small or mid-market presence here in the city of Philadelphia. We've had some great success with that, without naming names. Yes.
Yes, Mayor. Do you have any specific initiatives that the city has related to expanding the use of both renewable energy?
Yeah, so we've made sustainability a pretty significant part of the economy here. I said a number of things at that first inauguration, one of which was that we were going to make Philadelphia the #1 green city in the United States of America, which is a pretty bold statement in and of itself. That much bolder given the fact that we had no plan to be the #1 green city in America, because it was my first day of work. But about a year later, we released GreenWorks Philadelphia, which is the city's plan to be one of the great green cities in America. I mean, no one's actually going to declare us the #1 green city in the country. Every city is doing any number of initiatives. But as a result of that, in putting that plan out there, and actually almost all of it is implemented, it did capture the attention of the marketplace, and a number of companies moved to the city or expanded in the city because of our focus and attention in that area. Green City Clean Waters is another. It's our stormwater management plan. It is a quite unique partnership between the city and the EPA, the first of its kind. So we're not under a consent decree. We're under a cooperation agreement with the EPA to invest in infrastructure, not $10 billion, which I don't have, but about $2 billion over the next 20 years. We're using our natural resource of open land and open space to deal with stormwater management issues, unlike any other city in the United States of America. A number of companies are working with us in those regards and recognize because of our initiatives, they actually want to be here in the city of Philadelphia. So the Commerce Department and the Office of Sustainability could talk with you about how companies can get more engaged with the city. Yes, ma'am. And then the gentleman.
You reach out to your peers in other cities around the country, and do you ever partner with any of them on any like super big initiatives or major programs
Yeah.
that you need help on?
So a couple of things. I am very, very active in both the U.S. Conference of Mayors as well as the National League of Cities. I'm a past president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. That was June of 12 to June of 13. It's a one-year term. So I know like hundreds of mayors all across the United States of America. Two in particular that I'm currently partnered with on an initiative are Mayor Parker in Houston and Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles. This is on a sustainability effort and trying to get other U.S. mayors actively engaged in those efforts. We take each other's ideas, utilize each other's ideas all the time. I'm on other cities' websites on a regular basis and talk with my peers about some of the challenges they face. So a couple years ago, Mayors Stephanie Rawlings Blake and Mayor from Baltimore and Mayor Reed out of Atlanta, we went with Vice President Biden to Panama a couple years ago to see what was going on with regard to port and port operations, the post-Panamax ships, the expanded business activity that will come from those ships being able to come to the United States with about 12 to 15,000 containers on those ships. Many of our ports will not be able to host those ships, but they'll offload offshore and bring more goods and services into our city. So there's a lot of activity at the mayor level, which from my perspective is cities are the only level of government that's actually working. That's because we have to get things done. I can't pass a continuing resolution on whether or not I'm going to pick up the snow or pick up trash or fill potholes. That's what we do on a daily basis. Our budgets are all balanced every year, unlike other levels of government. So the mayors talk a lot. Local elected officials talk a lot and utilize each other's ideas on a pretty regular basis. Yes, sir.
Yeah, infrastructure is the great enabler to creating economic value. So how does infrastructure fall on your list of priorities? Or is it outside of the scope of what the mayor does?
No, actually, I mean, we're the ones that repave the streets, at least the ones that we own. The state takes care of state roads and highways. There are state designated roads in the city of Philadelphia that the Commonwealth is responsible for. Infrastructure is huge, hugely important. Pennsylvania generally is considered to have some of the most efficient roads and bridges of any state in the United States of America. Well, we can't do this work by ourselves. So we're here in University City. If you get a chance, if you're into bridges, one of the most beautiful bridges you're going to see is the South Street Bridge. It's a $68 million, it's open now, $68 million project. We had to make the decision to close it. Nearly 200,000 people utilize that bridge on a daily basis. It is the connection between University City and Center City. But chunks of concrete were falling from the bridge into the Schuylkill River. So we had to make the decision to close the bridge. It's a $68 million project, 80% of which was paid for by the federal government, 15% by the state government, 5% by us. During its construction, we went through two of the hottest summers, the coldest winter on record. The bridge was finished under budget and a month early. We only were able to do that because of that strong support, obviously from the feds and from the state. So we have a role and responsibility here, but there's no way in the world that our city or any other city can deal with all of its infrastructure needs without significant support from the federal and state governments, both of which in many instances have been lacking. And they put people to work. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Can you give us an idea what the logistics was like when the Pope came with his million friends? It was very successful, by the way. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There were a lot of meetings. I'll say that. So, this started out as 2.5 years ago. The Vatican announced, at the time, Pope Benedict announced that the World Meeting of Families was going to be held in Philadelphia. This was not something that we filled out an application for. It's not something that we asked for. I got a call one day from the Archbishop here, Chaput, saying that the World Meeting of Families was coming to Philadelphia. I said, okay, that's really great. What is it? World Meeting of Families has never been held in the United States of America before. So, got all that history. Okay. Then Pope Benedict steps down. So is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Yes, it's going to happen, but we don't have a pope right now, so we'll get back to you. Pope Francis gets elected. And then last year, with Governor Corbett, myself, and a bunch of business leaders, we went to Rome to meet with the leaders of this effort and to meet Pope Francis to formally ask him to come to Philadelphia. Which at the time he kind of gave us an indication that he would, but it hadn't been officially announced, so we couldn't say anything. Anyway, so we start working with his folks on the logistics. So all you have at that time is World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia. He subsequently announced that he was coming himself. Then Speaker Boehner asked him to come and speak to a joint session of Congress. Then President Obama asked him to come to the White House. Of course, he says yes. Then General Assembly, General Secretary, rather, the UN realizes, oh, that's around about the time we're having a big session. Why don't you come to New York City? Of course, he says yes. So all these trips get added on, and then the Pope decides that he wants to go to Cuba before he comes to the United States. So I mean, this coming to Philly thing then becomes this coming to the United States and the Western Hemisphere kind of event. So we then had to coordinate with the U.S. Secret Service, because this was designated as a national special security event, not only for what was going on here in Philadelphia, but also keep track of all the movements in D.C. and in New York. And then where was he going first? So it was D.C. first, then New York, and then to Philadelphia. 3 large events with 3 different parades. Trying to move him around is not the easiest thing in the world. Unlike when the president comes, I mean, we've had the president in Philly any number of times, but the president doesn't usually stay for 2 days or have 3 major public addresses over a 2-day period of time. So very, very different levels of security and complication. Lastly, these are the entities that were involved: the Philadelphia Police Department, the Pennsylvania State Police, the Pennsylvania National Guard, the SEPTA Police, the FBI, the Secret Service, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Italian government police, the Vatican police, and the Swiss Guard. Other than that, it was really simple. And trying to communicate in 2 different languages across the ocean. Other than that, it was a blast. It was the most spectacular event this city has seen in a long, long period of time. And we're very, very grateful, again, that Philly was picked to be the host for such an event, as we were for the Democratic National Convention, which is taking place in Philadelphia next year, first time since 1948. We have a lot of momentum going in the city. Sure. Last question? Yes, sir.
Thank you for covering a very wide range of topics. One thing which I didn't hear was the healthcare facilities in the city and what city is doing to improving access to healthcare, especially in chronic disease management.
What's the city doing?
What is city doing for improving access to healthcare?
Access. So we run 8 health centers in the city. Philly is, I mean, good or bad, right or wrong, it was a decision made a long, long time ago. We're probably one of the big major cities in the country that does not have a public hospital. We did have one. It was closed many, many years ago, but we do run 8 health centers. We have partnership agreements with all the major health providers in the city, certainly contracts with Penn and Temple, Jefferson, and Drexel. I think our main role in that regard is making sure that folks have access to our centers, and that our Philadelphia Health Department, which has been highly regarded for many, many years, is in a position to get people the information they need about maintenance and prevention in those kinds of issues. The costs of health care, which is a completely different topic, not a whole lot that we as a city government can do in that regard. I think between what the Affordable Care Act has done and a number of other initiatives by the healthcare providers trying to drive costs down and increase access takes place at a pretty different level than city government, at least here in Philadelphia. But we do try to do, I mean, unless you're like a serious disease or gunshot wound or something like that, we drive a lot of folks, get a lot of folks to come to our health centers. We actively participate in the sign-up period for the Affordable Care Act. I have literally signed people up for health care who didn't have it when those activities take place. So we utilize city assets and city organizations in that way to drive folks to the place where they, not literally, but figuratively drive them to the place where they need to get to. Anything else? I know I said last question, but I just wanted to get your attention.
Hi,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Mayor. This is Alison Berto from the Philadelphia Business Journal. Just curious if one of these mid-market CEOs or business leaders here wanted to start a conversation with you about bringing their entity or expanding in Philadelphia, what's going on with you and your future successors, soon to be elected, to ensure that those conversations are preserved with the next administration that comes in?
So, I guess a couple of things. Probably hasn't been reported. I think we haven't announced this. There was one story about this. So, knowing the calendar and knowing the process that I went through when I was in the same situation 7, 8 years ago, we brought on last year a person for the sole purpose of managing transition. Every department and agency has already prepared a transition report, which have been turned over to both major party candidates, the Democrat and the Republican. They have, at the moment, pretty much every piece of information that they need and who the personnel are in those jobs and positions. It is my responsibility to make sure that for whomever the voters pick, that the transition is as smooth as possible. The business of government must continue, and that there should be no noticeable difference between what happens on, I guess, Friday the 1st, although I guess technically we'd be closed because that would be New Year's Day, but I guess December 31st and Monday, January 4th, which is Inauguration Day. In terms of basic services that people get, there should be no noticeable change. In terms of getting more focus on the question that you asked, I mean, if we were in a conversation today with any one of you, and if anyone is thinking about it, certainly I want to engage in a conversation with you right now. We will certainly be sure to turn that information over to whomever, for instance, becomes the next commerce director, or whatever the structure of government might be for the next executive. We will not let things slip through the crack. Again, it's a part of our duty and obligation to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible, and that conversations continue and that business is conducted. So we're fully geared up and ready for that. Sure. Anything else? Yes, sir. Good morning. Sure. I'm sorry, why don't you, yeah, because I missed a little bit of it.
That's okay. What qualities and traits do you look for when you're appointing and hiring people to support your initiatives and innovation within the city of Philadelphia?
It's more than a few things. I mean, obviously, I want a level of expertise in their area. So, again, take Police Commissioner Ramsey. I did not ask him if he knows how to, put on handcuffs or shoot his weapon. I'm going to assume, 30-some odd years in policing, he probably knows how to do that. What I'm looking for is strong management. I'm looking for a strong personality. I'm looking for a smart person, not just book smart, but also, kind of common sense smart about getting things done. Track record. What's your previous experience? Is this someone that I would, be comfortable spending a lot of time with? Because you're going to spend a lot of time with your top people. So, I've used, without naming names, there are any number of examples in the sports world, for instance, where someone is highly talented, but they are just an asshole. Right? And it actually can destroy a team or destroy a locker room, right? So it's not just about the talent. It really is about how do you fit in this organization, and you understand that you're a part of a team and that the team wins. You'll get your profile, you'll be in the newspaper, you can be on the radio, you can do all of that. That's fantastic. Can we actually move together as a team to get stuff done? So I try to hire the smartest, brightest people that I can, try to get as many who are smarter than me so I can learn from them, empower them, support them, get out of the way. When things go awry or somebody makes a mistake or whatever the case may be, back up your people strongly and move on. But have a plan, work the plan, stick to the plan. That's how we've had success here in Philly. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Mayor, I grew up in Philadelphia in the 60s, and my son lives in the city today. He's 27, works outside the city, and I would say it's just remarkable what you guys have done over the last 5 or 6 years in the city of Philadelphia, just seeing it myself. So I just want to personally tell you what you said you've done. So I think it's a great thing to see what's happened for young people in Philadelphia. I happen to live in Baltimore. We've gone through some tough times, but that's a city that's also trying to make a comeback.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and it will. We've all had our rough moments, and I think that having business leadership stand tall and stand strong through the tough times is what demonstrates the resiliency of cities all across the United States of America. Cities, many of them have come back already. Some are still in the process, and cities drive regions. But 90% of the gross domestic product of the United States of America is generated in cities and metro areas. We are the economy of the United States of America. And so I think if you hang in there with us, with strong leadership on the ground, both on the political side, business side, and the civic side, philanthropic community, you can actually get some stuff done. Let me leave you, I'm glad to answer any other questions. Ken, I don't know what your situation is like. Probably put your program behind. Let me just give you this, and this is actually the first time I will have talked about this. I started out talking about this issue of momentum, and A, I truly believe in it, and B, we're at that moment where I think it becomes that much more critical. And that does not mean that we've been perfect or we've done everything right. Nothing could be farther from the truth. We've not been perfect and we've not done everything right. But we've had some successful moments. And so I'll just give you my perspective on, there is, in physics, momentum is a physics term, and there's an equation. And it is momentum equals mass times velocity. The symbol for momentum actually happens to be a small p, so I'm going to put Philadelphia in that particular equation. And when we talk about mass, I think what we're really talking about is business investment and jobs, population growth, millennials, big events, ethics, education, public safety, and having a game plan. And when you multiply that by velocity, which I would call aggressive leadership, and the capacity of leaders, a balanced agenda, national and international focus, and what I refer to as joy in the job. You have to love this job. If you take that mass and you can get people moving, called the city and its various elements, and with a big push from velocity and the things that I mentioned, you will have momentum. And people want to be in places that have momentum, that are moving, that are growing, that are making progress. And that, for me, are just one or two of the lessons that I've learned over the last 8 years, managing and trying to lead the 5th largest city in the United States of America. Thanks a lot.